Did you know that 40% of Americans say they have trouble meeting their monthly financial obligations? The same study shows that 2/3 of people will have trouble finding $1,000 if they need it. So we need to ask, why so many people are having trouble these days? Well, in this video, I'll show you the 3 costs that will ruin your finances and what you can do about them. No matter how many books you read on money management, if you don't find the expenses that hurt your income the most, you've missed it all. Most people's expenses are usually for food, transportation, and a place to live. Now, if you want to save money, you'll have to figure out how to cut back on these costs. The first rule of not going broke is to spend less than you earn. Basically, if you want to save more money, you should focus on your 3 biggest costs: housing, transportation, and food. Food, transportation, and housing take up about 60% of the average person's budget. So, the best place to start if you want to save more money is with the big 3. One common piece of financial advice says that the best way to save money is to cut back as much as possible on small, everyday purchases. The idea is that small purchases that don't seem like much can add up to a lot of money over time. A good example is the coffee you buy every morning. Even though cutting back on small purchases and spending is a good way to save money, it's hard to say how much this will affect your bottom line. The best way to save money is to start with your biggest costs and work your way down. You might be wondering why, and I'll explain that as we go through this video. For now though, hit the like button and let me explain why the best way to save more money is to make smart choices about the big 3 living costs. You can see that housing is still the biggest cost for most people all over the world. About 37% of a household's after-tax income in the United States goes towards housing costs. This means that 37 cents of every dollar that comes into your home goes straight to paying for housing. And how much does it cost to live in the country? Let's talk about that. When homeowners make a budget for housing costs, they usually include obvious costs like mortgage payments, property taxes, home insurance, homeowners association fees, and heat and electricity bills. But there are also costs that come up when you own a home that you didn't expect. These are the costs that most people don't think about, but we'll talk about them right now. Let's start with maintenance that has to be done. One of the best things about renting instead of buying a home is that you can always call the landlord if something breaks or needs to be fixed. Once you buy a home though, you are responsible for paying for these repairs. On average, homeowners spend about $2,000 per year or $168 per month on general maintenance costs. A good rule of thumb for this kind of expense is that the owner should set aside at least 1% of the value of their home each year for expected maintenance costs. So, if your home is worth $500,000, you should set aside at least $5,000 per year or $440 per month for repairs. People are culturally obsessed with making changes to their homes. People want to make sure their house is the nicest on the block, which costs a lot of money on top of the maintenance fees we just talked about. So, there are also costs like snow removal, cleaning, security systems, and pool maintenance on top of these 2 big extra costs. Studies have shown that these services cost the average homeowner $638 per year or $53 per month. Now, let's talk about the second of the top 3 costs, which is transportation. In 2018, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, of the United States said that the average American family spends $9,761 a year on transportation, or $813 a month. This is about 17.6% of a typical take-home, which is not a small percent. Although transportation accounts for less than the cost of housing, there's no refuting how much of a money grab cars can be. At least if you own your home, you have something that could get more valuable over time. Cars, on the other hand, will depreciate the longer you own them, and in this video, I will break down the true cost of owning a car and why it's important to have this expense mastered. You see, once you buy a new car, the average monthly costs are the car payment, which is about $550, insurance, which costs $100, gas, which costs $150, and maintenance and registration fees, which should add up to about $120. So, the total cost of owning a new ride every month is $925. Now, this isn't great on its own, but it's even worse when you think about how much a car's value goes down over time. If you think the biggest cost of getting a new car is the monthly payment, you're wrong. Depreciation is the main cost of a new car. Depreciation is the loss of value that happens to your car every time you turn it on and drive it around the block. Carfax says that all new cars lose 20% of their value in the first year and 10% in each of the following years. In short, the longer you own a car, the more its value goes down. Now, if you bought a brand new car for $40,000, it would lose $8,000 in value in the first year. That's a whopping $666 every single month that you own the car. The truth is, if you spend more than you can afford on a new car, it will really mess up your finances. Let's talk about food. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average US household spends about $7,203 a year on food, or about $600 a month. This is about 30% of the average amount of money a person brings home. The total includes what you spend on food when you eat out and what you spend on food when you cook at home. The breakdown is $4,944 a year, or $337 a month for groceries, and $3,154 a year, or $262 a month for eating out. At this point, it should be very clear to you that if you control how much you spend on food, transportation, and housing, you will save a lot of money, much more than if you just make your own coffee every day. So, the million-dollar question is how to spend less money on these three big costs. Well, stay with me and I'll tell you right now how to do this. Let us start with housing, which is typically the biggest expense for most people. You already know that housing costs have gone up a lot in recent years, and it seems like they keep going up every year. So, how can you save money on housing if prices keep going up? We need to look at why housing costs are going up to find out. I'm going to tell you something that will blow your mind. After taking inflation into account, the average cost of a square foot of housing in the United States only went up by 4.6% between 1973 and 2015. People wanting to live in bigger homes is the main reason why housing costs have been so high. In 1973, the average size of a home was 1,660 square feet. The average size of a house in 2015 was 2,687 square feet. In 2015, the average house was 62% bigger than it was in 1973. Now, the fact that there are fewer people living in these big houses makes it even more expensive. In 1971, there were 3 people living in a house. In 2015, there were only 2.5 people living in a house. There are 16% fewer people, and houses are almost 2/3 bigger than they were before. Because of this, the amount of space per person has almost doubled. Now, you should have a pretty good idea of why housing costs have gone up so much. So, the easiest way to lower your housing costs should be clear: move into a smaller home. If someone tells you to buy more house than you need, it might be the worst piece of real estate advice they can give. If you buy a house with a spare room, think about how much it would cost to keep that room in good shape. You have to pay more property tax, have a bigger mortgage payment, pay for more utilities, and so on. So if you want to save more money, you should get the smallest home you can afford. It's not much of a sacrifice, but once you've saved up enough money, you'll be able to move into a bigger, more comfortable place. As for transportation, the answer is pretty clear. But people don't think about it because they want to keep up with the Joneses. If you want to save more money for the future, or for things that might come up tomorrow that you didn't plan for, you have to cut back and find cheaper ways to live. You have to take a public form of transportation to get around. Train systems and public buses can serve for a while. Also, if we're being honest, some trips could be made easier if people were more willing to work out. A little bit of trekking never killed anybody, and in this case, it would keep money in your pocket. In the case of food, all you really need to do is stick to eating at home. This is a good way to save money, and it might also be a good way to stay healthy. So, it doesn't help much to lose both money and health at the same time. You need to figure out what sacrifices are worth making based on your goals and preferences. The main point is that you probably need to think a lot more about how you waste money and your savings. So, what can you do with the money saved from these expenses? It's not hard at all. You should invest the money to good use. When people hear the word invest, they often think of men in suits passing around large amounts of money. I'm here to tell you that you don't have to be the Wolf of Wall Street to start investing. Even if you only have a few dollars to invest, you can still make your money grow by letting compound interest do its thing. You can start investing once you have some extra money. With a stock trading app, you can put a small amount of money at risk and learn important lessons about investing at the same time. If you'd rather not manage your investments yourself, you can use a service called a robo-advisor. For a small fee, you fill out a questionnaire and the advisor takes care of your investments. Lastly, if you want more personalized advice, a financial advisor is another option to consider. Their fees are higher, but the returns you'll get will still be better than not saving any money at all, which many people still do every day. Thank you so much for watching till the end of the video. I hope you picked up some important tips in managing your finances. If you learned something, be sure to leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and turn on all notifications. Until next time,